Grip socks are great, and now they're even better with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Better fit, moisture wicking, amazing comfort, and all the extra grip you need. Choose from 10 different colors for just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Do not buy a pair of Mercurials before watching this. I don't know why I shake the boot as if it's talking to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Nike Zoom Mercurial Vapor 15 Elite that I have here in this gorgeous blackout colorway, but more importantly, it's in the AG Pro stud pattern, all new for this generation of Mercurial, and as you can see, it brings back the cored out AG studs that we've seen over the last several years from Nike in a bunch of different models. But in addition to that, you also get the new Mercurial's 3/4 length zoom unit, which is great in the FG pair, it's great in the soft ground pair, but I think for an AG specific application, it just makes so much sense. And because of the design of this AG stud pattern, it's functional on both natural and artificial playing surfaces. A true FG AG stud pattern, even though it's technically just AG. We're gonna go over all the details of the AG Pro Vapor 15 Elite. I'll talk about what makes them different from the FG model, including how they fit and feel on feet, and help you decide whether or not this year, if you're planning on picking up a pair of Mercurials, why you might want to go for the AG stud pattern rather than the FG one. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, and if you are interested in a pair for yourself, you can get them below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the review page on my website, which of course will be the first link down below. So first things first, let's talk about what's the same when compared to the FG version of the same football boot. And the answer to that question is everything except the stud pattern, which is why in this review, for the sake of saving you some time, if you've already seen my previous content on the Vapor 15, we're going to focus in on what is different, and that is the stud pattern. So if you do want to learn more about everything else about this next generation of Mercurial, definitely go and check out that Vapor 15 FG review. I'll leave a little pop-up on screen. Nonetheless, you'll notice that the sole plate tooling actually has a very similar design. You have the air zoom window in the forefoot highlighted in Volt Yellow. You have the same spine through the midfoot. It even has the same kind of connected, almost tooth-like or missing tooth-like bladed studs here at the back of the heel. But obviously in place of the tri-star studs, you have these cored out conical studs, 2 in the heel, 8 in the forefoot, with a bladed support stud in the middle. These AG specific studs are actually softer at the tip than the average stud, and because they're hollowed out, they have this ability to flex. You're not really going to move it very easily with the tips of your finger, but if you can imagine the entire weight of your body on an artificial grass playing surface, which typically is very clingy and doesn't have a lot of give to it, it's going to allow those studs to flex ever so slightly, which is going to simulate the traction experience that you would typically get from a firm ground stud pattern on natural grass, but from an AG stud pattern on artificial grass. And the reason why that's important has more to do with safety than it does to do with actual performance, because you can wear the FG Mercurials on artificial grass. In fact, most people probably do. The issue with that is you end up with too much grip, and when you have too much grip and that inability to twist and pivot, your foot gets stuck in the ground and it puts your ankles, knees, and hips at a significantly higher risk of injury. And I know you might be saying to yourself, Josh, I've been wearing FG studs on artificial grass my entire life and I've never suffered a serious injury. I'm sure there's going to be other people in the comment section that have done exactly the same thing and have had some horrible issues, mainly due to their stud pattern. So, as I've recommended before, and as I will continue to recommend, if you regularly play on artificial grass, you should 100% be picking an AG stud pattern, whether it's this one or any other one. Why I like this one in particular, however, and why there's an argument to be made that this is the best ever AG sole plate stud pattern ever to be featured on a pair of football boots, is because of that implementation of the 3/4 length air zoom unit, where if you remove the insole, you can see inside of the football boot it reveals that zoom unit that you're standing directly on top of. That if you've seen any of my previous Mercurial content on this new generation, you know that it provides this responsive bounce. It's not necessarily responsiveness that's going to improve performance like Nike likes to talk about in their marketing material, but there's a slight amount of cushion, a running shoe-like smoothness when striding forward, when running, that you just don't get from any other football boot. And when you're talking about a playing surface like artificial grass, even if it's the most premium AG field in the world, it just doesn't have as much give to it as natural grass will have, at least a well-kept natural pitch. So having a little bit of additional cushion from that Air Zoom unit that also doesn't take away from the responsiveness of the football boot really is a game changer in terms of AG specific feel and AG specific comfort. If you find that playing on artificial grass is just really hard on the bottom of your feet, the Air Zoom technology on this new Mercurial with this AG stud pattern, I think will be super beneficial to you. And what's also awesome about this particular stud pattern in general is that despite the hollowed out studs and of course the softer material on the tip, which you have to be aware of if you use these on harder ground, it is going to wear the tips of the studs a little bit more quickly than you perhaps might like. But if you're playing on well-kept natural fields, you're basically left with a stud pattern that is kind of like a more traditional conical stud pattern that obviously provides very aggressive traction on artificial grass. Pretty much any stud pattern will do that. But what you end up with here is a stud pattern that is very functional on natural grass. And if we look back at the Neymar Mercurial days, for those that can remember that far back, he actually favored wearing a very similar AG Pro stud pattern on his Mercurials at the time over an FG1 with the bladed studs, simply for the sake of safety, and he was struggling with issues with his ankle at the time. This provided that freedom to twist and pivot a little bit more easily than a standard FG stud pattern would. And what I love about this is the fact that it does have that duality. You can use it on firm natural grass safely with great performance, and you can use it on artificial grass safely with great performance. You can't say that about very many football boots. And because the boots are made specifically for artificial grass, should you run into any issues with durability, Nike's warranty department should take care of you. Whereas if you wore an FG pair of Mercurials on artificial grass and had an issue, Nike technically has the right to refuse your claim because you're wearing the boots on a playing surface that they were never intended for. Which brings us to another thing that we should compare to the FG version, and that is the weight of the football boots. Is the FG1 any lighter or heavier than the AG Pro variation? Well, both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start with the FG Vapor 15 Elite. They weigh in at 6.75 ounces, the equivalent of 191 grams. Remember those numbers. We'll change the scale back to ounces, and we'll throw on the AG Pro model, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.4 ounces, the equivalent of 182 grams. So not only are you getting a stud pattern that maybe isn't as aggressive on natural grass, but a stud pattern that you can use on natural and artificial playing surfaces, you're also getting a football boot that is nearly 10 grams lighter than the already very light FG Mercurial, which honestly, pretty surprising. On feet, just like the FG model, I am super impressed with the fit and feel of the Vapor 15 Elite, and I think that Air Zoom bag underneath your feet on an AG boot specifically, part of why I hate playing on artificial grass is because of how hard it is on your body, particularly the bottom of your feet. And I don't necessarily want to call this cushion kind of like a comfort element, but I would almost view it as impact protection on artificial grass, which yes, some have more padding to them than others, but in general, running around on artificial grass is typically going to be a lot harder on your feet than running on natural grass would be, and having that Zoom bag directly in the forefoot, protecting your toes, protecting the balls of your feet, kind of the parts of your feet that you're kind of always on top of and bouncing around on. To me, the sensation from this boot is just phenomenal, and from a comfort perspective, I just find this better than any other AG football boot that I've personally ever worn. Air Zoom tech aside, the AG version maintains the signature anatomic sole plate of the FG model, something we've seen on the last several generations of Mercurial that really gives you this connected sensation underneath your feet. And as you'd expect from something labeled as a Nike Mercurial, it fits super tight, it wraps your foot very closely, and provides a very locked in responsive sensation while also maintaining a surprisingly comfortable fit and feel. From a width perspective, the Mercurial, so they fit tight. There's definitely a slight increase in width as well as volume when compared to the previous generation, but it's a very subtle change and one that I think most people won't be unhappy with. If you like a tight fitting boot, these will fit most people, although if you do have really wide feet, they might not be the best option for you. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, if you were on the market for a pair of Mercurials and they're going to be going anywhere near an artificial grass playing surface, it's a no-brainer. You should go for the AG Pro variation. They fit and feel every bit as good as the FG model. They're even a little bit lighter, and the benefits of the Air Zoom tech, while I think are great on any variation of the Mercurial, I think are only amplified on the AG Pro model when being used on artificial grass. This is a phenomenal pair of football boots, and even if you're not necessarily a Mercurial guy, if you find that AG fields are really hard on your feet, I think you really will benefit from the 3/4 length zoom unit found on these new Vapors, or if you go for the Superfly, which is also available in AG, be my guest. They're excellent football boots. I think a lot of you guys are really gonna love them, and I can't recommend them anymore. I hate being overly positive when reviewing a pair of football boots, but I really do think this is the best AG sole plate stud pattern combo we've ever seen.